in principle, we don't want to delay the start. In the principle, we are an offshore race. We are a race around the world where the sailors have to take whatever is thrown at them. So normally we would never delay the start. And we had a situation in the last race where we actually chose to delay the start in China, and that was probably my hardest decision ever. One of my hardest, because I really didn't want to do it. And the reason we did it really had more to do with the fact that we had lost confidence in the boats. We had so many broken boats and so many boats with structural problems, and we knew the conditions were very bad, and a lot of the skippers were scared about the boats. But it was nothing like what we have here now. It was no cyclone. It was no. It was just a strong, heavy condition with severe waves. When we started to track the cyclone a couple of days ago, or more than a couple of days ago, you never know early in the cyclone's path where it's going to end up. So it's difficult. And in the beginning, you had it was weaker. It was not predicted to be as strong as it is, and you end up in this borderline decision where you could send them out. And if it was going further east, we could still send the sailors out, and it's their choice if they sail into the cyclone or not. They could sail north and escape it. But I was very clear in my team, and we discussed this a lot, that we needed to have a path that they could go north along the New Zealand coast and go north. Because although you can anchor, and that happened in the Volvo Ocean Race in 2008-9 in the Luzon Strait, where the boat anchored up in the Philippines. But that was in the middle of the leg. But to anchor up right after the start line, we think looked ridiculous. That you start and then everybody throw the anchor. Because you create that situation that the first boat will try and succeed or fail. And the failure is catastrophic. So we don't want to have that the first day. Now we got into a scenario where the latest predictions of the tropical cyclone, first of all, the tropical cyclone has deepened significantly. Now it's a category 5. It's the highest category you can have of a cyclone, and it's a very severe system, and it's a good probability that there is no way to even escape safely along the New Zealand coast. So the only way to avoid it, if we had started on Sunday, would be to sit here. So anchor up in Mission Bay or in a rocky gulf somewhere and Coromandel, and sit there and wait. And it's not what the Volvo Ocean Race is. We are a race and we want to have it a race. The difficult decision is always going to be, when do we start them? And again, we will apply the same principle as long as we give them reasonable choice. So they can leave in decent conditions. So it's a safe departure out of New Zealand. And then they can choose. They can aim for the center of the cyclone and try to catch it. This actually happened in one of my races in 97, 98, when I raced with myself and Trist as my navigator. And we left Auckland, we had a cyclone passing us, and then we started chasing it. And that was the race. It was about chasing this cyclone. And we ended up very close to it and had almost 70 knots of wind and pretty dramatic conditions for half a day. But then you have the choice. You can still choose to go north. It's your decision. What we are monitoring more carefully now is the sea state. The sailors are not really scared about the wind. They are scared about waves. When the waves have a different direction than the wind, and when the waves are messy. So if the waves are structured and organized, like they quite often are when you get deeper in the Southern Ocean, you can have 20-meter waves or 15-meter waves, but beautiful, clean waves that are nice to sail in. But if the waves are messy, and that when you have an erratic system that is moving, and currently the tropical low is, or cyclone is moving around 15 to 17 knots of speed. So it means that the direction close to the center of the waves and the wind is going to change quite fast. And that means messy waves. They're talking 20 to 25 feet of waves, very close to the New Zealand coast. That is big waves. If they are messy, it's very big waves. One of the worst places in the world to sail is outside the northwest coast of France and England. And this is not because the waves are very tall, but it's because they are very messy, because of the current and the shallow waters. And that's what we want to avoid, because if they have the waves from the side or they're messy, they are going to jump and land. So, tricky decision, but the good news is that we have time. And I think the big decision is to delay or not to delay. Then whether we delay to Tuesday 10 o'clock or Tuesday 4 o'clock, we are looking at around midday Tuesday as a start at the moment. That's our latest information, and it looks reasonable to start around that time. So it's also good to do a start in daytime. That's also another preference we have. We want to film it. We want to get the helicopters up and have a nice footage.
It will be on Tuesday, not on the Wednesday?
Well, it can happen. What I'm saying that is based on the information we have today. So the tracking of the cyclone it's a little bit faster than yesterday. That means that it's passing further south quicker. And we also don't want to start them too late. If we start them too late, it actually is very little wind behind the storm. And suddenly we have them waiting for the next cyclone or next system coming. There's another system already north of Australia that's developing there, and it's obviously the season for it. Seems like to be the year for it. Almost.
There's a wind change coming through to the southwest, I think, on Monday.
Yes.
How's that affecting your decisions? Because I mean, normally that sort of breeze you'd use to just get away from the coast.
Yeah, I mean, southwest is not a bad direction to sail away from Auckland, really.
No, it's great.
It could be fantastic conditions, really, when we leave on Tuesday. Monday, we don't see any possibility of leaving. So all the forecasts we have are, we even having now severe weather preparations for the race village, all the way from around 6 o'clock in the evening on Sunday, all the way to almost midday on Monday. So we don't see any chance of even considering leaving on Monday. But it's looking like a southwest wind direction for a start on Tuesday as well. Nice conditions, 15-20 knots, gusting 25.
I'm saying 40.
Not in here?
Yeah.
On Tuesday?
Oh, sorry, no, I look at Channel Island.
Oh yeah, no, further out there, absolutely. No, you can find a lot more wind if you want. And these boats are capable of keeping very high average speed, so they could actually catch up with the system in front of them. And stay with that system for a very long time, depending on the path it's taking.
When you make those assessments, I mean, what are you doing? Are you just looking at the actual path of the cyclone, or are you doing weather outing for the boats as well to see what the options
are? We have our own Met team internally, and then we are working with the commander's weather as our third party. And we have another French company called Great Circle that we also provides the weather data for the boats during the race, the packages they get every day. And then we do a sort of total assessment of first what options they have, because we always want to create a situation where they have options. We will not look for a place where they cannot not be affected by strong wind, because if we do that, we shouldn't do the World Voyage race. So we are not looking to not have them sailing in 40 knots at all, but we are looking for a window where they have opportunity to choose where they can sail a safe route if they want. And then to do that, you need to route them from different start points from Auckland and route them through the next 3-4 days, and then you get an optimal route. An optimal route will probably take you very close to the current cyclone, because the optimal route will not look for safety, it will look for best performance. And then we look at that and we compare with other alternative routes, and we see what are the likely conditions. But we are not trying to route the boats, what should I say, risk-free or because it's impossible. I mean, next week they're likely to be with another low pressure.
So when you're doing that routing, what's the highest wind strength and period of that are you seeing?
Oh, I can't answer that right now. I don't have it in my head, to be honest.
The routing I did last night showed that it didn't matter virtually when you started, you're always going to hit this patch there of 50 knots. It's just a matter of when you hit it, whether it was you started Sunday, Monday or Tuesday.
That's your choice. You don't have to hit 50 knots because you can sail for the north.
Sure.
So it's your choice how close you go to the center. And that's going to be the same with every low pressure system in the Southern Ocean. So and the whole weather routing through the Southern Ocean is exactly about that, finding the optimal, how close you go when you drive in close to the front and then you set up on the other side. Some goes too close, get too much breeze, it's not really faster either. And my experience with the last races compared to the old days is that we are looking for slightly less wind now, as the sailors are looking for less wind than what they used to do. Because the boats reaches a very high max speed potential earlier. I mean, a bit like multi-hulls, you're not looking for 40 knots of wind, you're looking for 25, 28 knots, and then you're looking for nice sea state. Then you have your maximum speed. If you find 40, 45, you are probably slower. So then you have to keep that into mind. Yeah. Yes.
The question: once the race has begun,
Yes.
they end up in a really bad weather system.
Yes.
Is the race ever being postponed to get out of that way?
No.
No. So once they leave, that's it.
Yes.
From here to Brazil.
Yes. I mean, it's their decision. It's the responsibility and decision of the skipper and the team of the skipper where he goes. There's a few places on the planet where you have very few choices. Cape Horn is an example. You know, when you get to Cape Horn, and there's not many places to go. That's part of the game. But you see, the challenge is that if we see a boat captured by a very dangerous weather scenario, postponing and not postponing doesn't make any difference. The skipper can choose to postpone whenever he wants. But he has that right, he has that authority to do whatever he wants. He can take the sails down, he can turn around and go back to New Zealand. He can do whatever he wants, anytime. So what we do is kind of irrelevant. He has that option all the time, and we don't have more options than him.
There was something I remembered 3 years ago, and I'll never forget it. It was at a press conference one morning, and a question went out, and one of the skippers, please just explain to us, what's it like just getting from port to port? And the person who was looking at it, he looked at one of the other skippers and he said, I'd love to answer that. And he said, just getting there safely with everyone alive is just the best thing of this.
Yes.
He said it really is. We're into areas we've never seen before.
Yes.
I'll never forget it. It really it rocked me.
And that is the important thing for us, obviously, as well. The safety of the people is our number one criteria. Yes?
As a competitor and an administrator, like in your role here, you will face obviously different challenges.
Yes.
How are you personally handling the responsibilities of these challenges as an administrator compared to as a sailor? Do you find perhaps that easier?
I have to be careful what I say now. I think in one way you have a lot more responsibility as a organizer, because I have a lot more stakeholders, I have a lot more people to look after. On the other hand, the ultimate responsibility you have out in the ocean as a skipper is a much more life and death responsibility, where you really have the lives of other people on a much finer line than you have here on land, you know. So I think it's slightly more stressful than the job I have now in general, because there's not because of this scenario we have in the Southern Ocean. It's stressful for the skippers, but I have all kinds of stresses. I get every time there is a boat with a problem, it lands on my desk, but the skippers have only the problems of their boat. And I can't get every boat stress on the table. And we have challenges in cities and countries. We have challenges with customs and ships. And you know, in China we were a few hours from missing the whole ship, and we had to reroute the ships to Vietnam to get them ready for Brazil. I mean, you have challenges every day. While on the boat, you have a fairly simple life. I mean, you have to decide your routing, you have to decide your safety margin, how you push, and then you have to make sure you sleep. And you don't think about too many other people than the people you have on the boat. So it's different. It's different. This particular leg from New Zealand to Brazil, I live very much like a sailor still, and you know, I fly back here to race control. So I'm in race control as soon as they leave the coast in Spain, and I have that race control software on my computer. So I'm back sleeping in my house in Spain. I am still in race control, and you know, when they are doing very high speeds, I don't sleep very well now. I sit and watch them. I still remember the night Ian Walker did 42.5 knots last race leaving New Zealand, and he crashed his boat right after. And that was when I was asleep in bed, and I woke up and my wife was asking, what the hell are you looking at? They're going very fast. And we have that very frequent update, you know, we have it every 10 minutes on that race control system, so you kind of see the waves growing, the speeds increasing and pushing, and you know it's black and not dark. Yeah, I can feel it. probably stronger than someone who hasn't been there. But. And then it's very good to be in a warm, nice bed. Dry. Yes.
The race, the first new one design
Yes.
concept,
Yes.
has already come halfway through.
Yes.
Can you review how the new system, how the new concept is going?
Yes. For me, it's 2 stages with that concept. The first stage was to get to the start line, and that was the biggest success for me because I think we wouldn't have been on the start line without it. Because in the world economy we had in 2012 and 13, it was no one wanted to spend any money on sponsorship. So unless you had a very radical proposal that can kind of, and it was not about one design, it was more about speaking to the sponsors a language that they were speaking in their companies at that time. They were speaking, every single company we worked with had a cost cutting on top of their agenda in their normal business. So to keep on coming with 30 million euro sailing projects and say, it doesn't work. You needed to speak another language where you show that you take responsibility, that you are really sustainable in what you do, that you think very carefully about how you spend money and how you run your business. So that was the first step. So that was for me, the biggest success is to get to the start line. That's the hardest thing in this race. Peter Blake said that, First to finish first you have to finish, and then before that you have to get to the start line. And then the second step is that we wanted to achieve a lot of things as well with this boat. We wanted to achieve that they were stronger. And so far, statistically, we are a lot stronger than the last race. We haven't really had boats that had to stop or leave the race because of boat problems. Unfortunately, we have a boat that hit the reef in the Indian Ocean, but has nothing to do with the boat. And last race, already here in Auckland, we had a huge confidence problem in the boats. So that was a good tick for me. And then the next thing, the close racing is kind of a byproduct. It's kind of a consequence. I think it's fantastic that the racing is close. I didn't honestly know if the racing was going to be much closer. You kind of expect that everyone will have the same tool, but I've sailed a lot of one design boats in my life, in Olympic classes and things, and Ben Ainsley is a hell of a lot faster than others, and Robert Scheidt is a hell of a lot faster in laser, and they're all the same boat. And even in one design, you have the sailors can be fast and slow and make wrong and right decisions. So what I'm impressed about is how they have developed this new way of racing, where they sort of just hang on it to each other to drive their performance up by learning, and they're sticking together. And it's an interesting way of racing, because obviously it becomes nerve-wracking, because you choose to put yourself in a position where you realize that this is probably going to be decided a few hours before the finish line. It's kind of we never had that in the past, where they told me now they're leaving here. They say we're probably going to be racing like crazy, all of us together, into the bay of Santa Catarina in Brazil, and choosing to do that. So they're almost so paranoid that they don't want to be alone in the front. That was the big thing in the old days. We wanted to be hundreds of miles in front. But no, I think it's amazing racing. I think and for the future of the race, I always believe sport is good when sport is fair. And that has been a struggle for me in this sport ever since I started. I've done some other sports, skiing and other things in my young life. And sailing has a tendency sometimes to be unfair. I shouldn't say that who, but in some sports classes in sailing, clearly some people have more money than others. Some people have clearly faster boats than others that others can't have. Some people have a lot more resources, and I think that you find in all sports. Even in skiing, my old sport that I loved, some of the best countries have a lot more support team, and they have better skis and But when you can eliminate that, that's when sport becomes really good, because I think that's what fairness in sport, I think, is underrated. And fairness for me is that people have the same tools and the same opportunity. So it doesn't mean that you can become as good. It doesn't mean that you should deserve to win, but you should have an opportunity. And if your opportunity is linked totally to money, for example, then everyone is not going to have the same opportunity. And that's why I think the one design is a beautiful thing, because it opens up the sport. And I know a lot of people are looking at the race. I have a lot of contacts now for the next race, people who are saying, wow, even I maybe in my team can be competitive in this race, Not because they think it's easy, but they see that they could have an opportunity. While in other classes of professional races in sailing, you will see, doesn't matter how good I would never even have that opportunity, never. And fairness in sport is very important. And I think this race right now, for me, is one of the fairest races I ever have experienced in sailing, to be honest. I can really hand on heart say that all these guys and girls have pretty much the same opportunity leaving Auckland to win in Itajaí, and to me that is real sport, and it's really important.
What do you think about Dongfeng? Are you surprised with the result or not?
I am surprised. First of all, I mean, I have worked very close to make that project happen together with Mark Turner, and Mark is one of the best operators in the sport of sailing. You know, he's one of the best managers, and in the Volvo Ocean race, the team needs management. Normally, management makes a difference, right, in everything, and it's a lot of kudos to him because he is an extremely good manager. He picks good people around him. He created Ellen MacArthur. I mean, he knows how to pull the right strings. I guess the surprise that is Charles Caudrelier, because Charles is such a modest person that I mean, I don't think people even discovered Charles in the last race, you know, and he was probably much more instrumental. I mean, I know because I have friends on Groupama who told me how good Charles was, but he wasn't really discovered. Maybe he was the most important person on the last boat as well, we don't know. But the way he has handled that team is very impressive. And but when I met him first time with the Chinese sailors more than 1 year ago in China when they started, I absolutely did not believe that they were going to be where they are now. No, I didn't. And that they had 40 sailors on trials there, and I think they had one of them that could speak one word of English, and none of them had ever crossed, you know, a small, tiny little ocean. And I remember the Charles and Martin and the guys were, you know, they're going to go around the world in less than 1 year now, you know, and here they are leading on well equal points with the leader. And they are sailing very, very well. I think they have a very good strategy. I like the strategy, and the strategy is that they are short-handed, so they have focused very hard on sailors who have a lot of short-handed experience. And short-handed experience means that you can do anything. It was very interesting, if you read the report of the Vestas grounding, they interviewed all the skippers and all the navigators. And the chairman of the report told me that they were quite surprised when they spoke to the Dongfeng team, and they realized that pretty much more than 50% of the crew on board could have been the navigator.
That's interesting.
And not because they could operate the software, but because they were actually real good weather routers and navigators. and most of them have actually crossed the Atlantic or done something alone, you know, like. So they have very, and that's a new trend, and I think it has to do both with the way we are racing these boats, but also the fact that we have limited the crew more. So there are only 4 guys now sailing, or 4 to 5 guys sailing this big boat. Most guys have to do everything. And I think it's a really good trend. I think it's why I think it's a good trend is not because I don't think the America's Cup trend we had in this race for some years, that specialized people, specialized trimmers and specialized grinders came into the race. It's fun as well, but what is a good sailor? That's a definition that you can ask a question about. And what is a Volvo Ocean Race sailor? And for me, a Volvo Ocean Race sailor is a sailor who is good at everything. It's a sailor that can be in the mast, in the bow, in the back, in the nav station, and cook, and repair. That's a Volvo Ocean Race sailor. And that's what it used to be in the old days, and now we're kind of getting back to that. You have to be extremely good at absolutely everything. I was extremely pleased to hear Sam talking about Sophie coming back, and she's normally the bow girl, but now she's going to come back as a helmsman. She can do anything. That's good sailors to me.
The OBRs are pretty critical to
Yes.
communication of the race, and obviously technology is helping them a lot. How do you think those guys are going, and what do you think might be next moves that are coming up for those guys?
I think they're going very well. It's a project very close to my heart, and I'm following those guys and girls very, very carefully. It's an incredibly difficult job, and it's extremely underrated. So people kind of think, you know, why is not more footage coming or something some days? But I mean, to live on that boat and in the position they are, you know, outside the core team, not allowed to help them, kind of in the way the whole time, annoyingly. and produce high quality content, go back to that little nav desk, that media desk, and try to edit some clips and communicating with my production team in Spain. I was talking, oh, you want more of this and less of that, and I get that interview, and they're like, oh, do you know where I'm sitting, you know? I haven't slept, and day out and day in, and keep motivated to produce better content is, so I'm really pleased. I mean, we chose a different path this time. We did this global recruitment where we looked for, instead of looking for sailors who learn how to pick up the camera, we kind of looked the other way. You know, people who are very good camera operators who would love to be surviving on a sailing boat. And we kind of succeeded halfway with that, I would say. We had, you know, 2,500 applicants, and some of the guys you see today came out of that program. You know, Brian Carlin came out of that program, Matt Knighton came out of that program. And at the same time, we also managed to keep the best guys from the last race, Jan and Emery, you know, were two of the absolute 3 best OBRs who were in the class by themselves. And I think if I'm saying my ambition level is that is even higher than where they are today. Not on the quality, because I think the quality of their footage is fantastic. I think quality-wise, they have probably made the biggest jump on still pictures this race. I think the still photos are amazing that they are shooting. I mean, we're starting to see photo blogs in America using our still pictures. I mean, we had Men's Health doing a double spread the other day just because of the photo. And they're really amazing photos. Telling the story is still a challenge, how to capture what is actually going on between the sailors in their heads and what their mind, and we are getting better. There's still some distance to go on, and it's also the sailors that needs to adapt to it. But it's us as well, how we program it, how we direct them. I still think we can do. There's a lot more to do. One idea I have is to maybe have 2 OBRs next race. That I was very close to do this time. I had a lot of resistance, so you can imagine from him to do that. But it's such an important role, and I have an idea that if you're 2, that you can be a team and you can start to work non-stop a bit more, and you can have maybe one better camera operator and one better journalist or one better writer. And it has such a big impact. I don't think adding one more is going to double the effect. But you know, if you took the OBR out of all ocean race today, where would it be? What race would it be? You know, nothing. I mean, you would have nothing. So I think adding one could maybe add 30-40% more. And I'm hoping a lot of young, new, or they said young, but journalists look at this and think, wow, because it's a process. But the tricky thing is to find those who can survive on the boats, and that was. Of all the people we selected, of course, some of the sailors who criticized this were right, that they're never going to survive, and of course that happened. I know the SCA team went through probably more than anyone, you know, finding a girl on top of that to survive on the boat and live, you know. If you haven't done that before, it's tough.
So, what about the all-female team?
Yes.
About the result?
About the result?
It's a little disappointing.
To be honest, I've been a little bit scared of this project because they're up against some very good boats, you know. So if they had been any better than where they are, it would be an amazing achievement, and they're still an amazing achievement. And I think that people, you know, you cannot judge people from a number. You have to judge people from who they are racing against, how close they are, and if they are competitive or not. I mean, they're far more competitive than some of the male boats we had in the last 2 races. But unfortunately, those guys are not here anymore, right? So they could have beaten them. They would have beaten Team Russia. They would have beaten Telefonica Black. They would have beaten a lot of boats we've had in the last 2, 3, 4 races would have been beaten by Team SCA. Absolutely. There's no such boats now though. There's no boats, sort of B boats, you know. They're all pretty good. I mean, you could argue that Mapfre was struggling in the beginning, big time they were. But it's not exactly B sailors on board. I mean, it's they're pretty good. And and I think SCA's challenge has nothing to do with women, really. I mean, it has to do with women, but it has to do with sailors with less experience. It's not because they're women they're now in last place right now. It's because they have a lot less experience than the guys. The guys have, and in particular decision making. You know, the guys on board the mail boats have made these decisions so many times, been in this situation so many times, and have references, and know exactly where to go. And for that, the girls, it's a lot of them. It's the first. Most of them, it's the first time. You know, everything is the first time. Even Sam Davis have been on. It was the first time she's in a boat that has to be pushed 24 hours a day, non-stop, and making good decisions every hour. And 1 degree wrong can be first or last. And having all that reference, it takes time. I think they're sailing bloody good, actually. When you look at how close they are, go back and just, if you have a GeoVal, there's a French tracker, you can go geoval.com and you can look at the Volvo Ocean races back. You can just scroll back now, you can open it anytime you want on the web. And you look at the distances we had, you know, with the last boats, they were 400 miles behind, 600 miles behind, 300 miles behind. Now they're like 30 miles behind, and they're like, oh, game over for the girls. It's like 2 hours sailing, you know? So you have to put it in perspective. They're good technically. I'm hoping they continue, because I think that if they continue, they will build and then they will close the gap.
But where do you go in future races? I mean, are you looking to get more boats in and more of the same in terms of men's crews, or opening it up so that you're actually encouraging more female crews in, more Asian crews in, more youth crews in, and so within those groups you've actually get a race going within a race, as well as trying to win the big one?
Yeah. I'm quite realistic. I'm quite not pessimistic, but I'm quite conservative on the future. You know, I like to be beating the expectations more than predicting that we're going to be 20 boats or something in the next race, because it is still a big race just to get to the start line. You know, even if we have cut the cost in half, it's still a lot of money. It's still, you know, these teams now have between 9 and 14 million euros spread over 2 years, 4.5 to 7 million euros per year. It's still a lot of money. I mean, it's no small feat to raise that kind of money. Because we still are high-performance big racing boats, I don't think we will ever be back to what Whitbread was in the 70s. Because then you could race with any boat. You could just find an old boat on the dock and participate.
It was a cruising race.
And do it for almost no budget,
Yeah.
you know. And as long as we have the high-performance racing boats in itself, that it costs money to be on the start line. So I think for the future, we are looking at, obviously we're going to keep these boats racing for the next race, and we are looking at building 2, maybe 3 more boats. I think most likely 2. If we have stronger interest in time, we can build more. But it's also a matter for us how much risk we take and how much we involve our race, because we don't think for us that the difference between 9 and 10 or 10 or 11 or 8 or 9 is huge. You know? It matters more what country the extra boat comes from, for example. It's much more important for us to have a Brazilian boat than to have a second Spanish boat, or an Italian or a French or a New Zealand boat. You know? That is much more important than the number of boats we have. So you have to look at it both ways. When it comes to female crews, I think we have a. I've spoken to the girls a bit now, and I don't get feedback that I don't feel they have enough incentives to do it well. So I don't think I can do more to open more up for women. We could add 1 more sailor or something, but they don't want that.
No.
So they're happy with the crew, and they think they have a good opportunity. So it's more about the time. On the young side, I have some ideas that maybe we should even push harder on having even more young crew on board. It's a balance. If I did everything that like I want personally, it would probably be 50% of the crew young and maybe a couple of women on each boat. I don't know, but that would be. I believe a lot in diversity, both on age and country, and I think it's great for the race.
So what's been the reaction of China to Dongfeng? Because really that's, if you look at all the attempts China's made to break into Western sport,
yes,
this is probably the first team that's done it. I mean, they've done it with sailing gold medalists and boards, but I mean, there's no Chinese team ever taken on the Western world and Western sport and achieved what these guys have done.
No. I mean, there's a lot of Chinese media coming here today.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wouldn't be that 4 races ago. But I think, what can I say? I mean, it was fantastic, obviously, in Sanya when they were leading and have won the leg. I mean, it was a dream scenario for us. Couldn't be better. and a lot of Chinese media. We had 380 Chinese journalists on the start weekend, and all the big publications, all the key CCTV channels. There's a lot of CCTV channels, but all the news channels, everyone covered it, and that has never happened in sailing ever. That doesn't mean that all Chinese are suddenly sailing fans, because we have a long way to go, and we are scratching the surface. But I have been in China 3 times with the race, and this is the first time I felt a lot of Chinese actually being proud and interested. Not only looking at it from a distance, but we had Dongfeng race team fans, clearly, and Wolf have fans, and Horace have fans, and they're still small heroes in the bigger picture, but they're still. We're starting something real now, and that's. I still think we have a very long way to go. But there's not so many races ago where we couldn't find a marina in China. Now we have marinas. We're starting to find boats. We're starting to have people who are fans of these guys, and I think it's we have been very fortunate with this project, and I must say that because first of all, the performance of the project is fantastic, and I think the Chinese sailors we have are really good communicators. We can do something with them. People like them. Hero product,
But I mean, you get all your viewership stats and all that sort of thing.
We have the stats there. We have a TV show in CCTV5 which is a shortened show. It's much shorter than the TV shows in other countries, and it has pretty good audience numbers, huge numbers compared to the rest of the world. But you have to keep things in perspective in China. When people say that you have 1 million viewers in China, you could be the 80th biggest TV channel. So you're not necessarily a big TV channel. But what we do, we classify what we call high quality media. So high quality media is CCTV5 and CCTV7 and CCTV11. Is the China Daily. It's we list which papers and which news outlets are high quality, and then we measure how many times do they write about the team and the races. And that's where we are probably 3 times starting now. Last race, 3 to 4 times up. Last race. So they're starting. There's some Chinese outlets that are starting to really follow the race, not only writing once or twice, but follow almost every week. There's something about Dongfeng race team and the Chinese sailors, and that's a change. And also we see that they're starting to follow individuals. Like before, it was kind of the corporate message. The Volvo Ocean race is being led by blah 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 blah. Now it's like our Horace is back on board, and his mother is crying, and there's which is great, because then you start to get engagement. Not just a small little piece in the bottom right page of the daily China Daily. So it's an interesting journey. It's fascinating to see. Also, you've been in China from the beginning of sailing in China, but it's at least from when I came there first time in 2007. We were trying to find a marina. It was Qingdao was the only option, and anything south of that, they didn't have a clue what we were talking about when we came in our race. It's different.
And we've always had a big impact.
Yes.
This one especially.
Yeah, and you see the first guy we had, Guachan, who was the OBR on Green Dragon in the 2008 race. He is now actually really famous in China. He did after the World Ocean race, he started the project to do around the world non-stop surfing navigation with a Class 40. Not a race, just a trip, which made him super famous. Now he's bought the trimaran from Francis Gayot to deck, and he has a crazy plan of going around the North Pole, at least halfway around. Not sure if it's the right boat, but at least he's going to try to do it. So it's inspiring these guys to do these adventures, and the Chinese like it. They really like those adventures. It's great.
But the corollary of that is that you've got New Zealand that used to be a key player in the race.
Yes.
Is now in with just
it's
5
now
guys.
I think it's the 6th biggest country now, 5th or 6th.
Okay.
In numbers of sailors. France is now the biggest country in the World Ocean race in numbers of sailors. And New Zealand has been the biggest country for the last 7 races, and now it's the 5th or 6th biggest nation.
What's happening?
And that I don't think has to do with the World Ocean race, though. I think that has to do with other things. So Australia is very big now. Why would Australia be big and New Zealand not? So I think it has more to do where, first of all, there's a generation change in New Zealand. These generation changes happens a little bit different in different countries. I see a lot more 30 to 40-year-old sailors in France on a high level than I see in New Zealand. New Zealand now, the new generation is actually even younger than that. There's a gap. And there's been so many professionals my age. My generation was huge in New Zealand. I mean, the guys who went sailing with Grant Dalton on New Zealand Endeavour, he had this whole boat filled up with Brad Jackson, Mike Sanderson, all of them were 26 years old at race, you know, and they've all been dominating the sailing scene here for 20 years. 20 years, you know.
Yeah.
And whoops, now they're quitting, and there's kind of a vacuum. And then the next step is the Peter Burlings and those who are much, much younger. So I think that's happening a bit here. And then you have the America's Cup, which is now a very narrow avenue. It's very, I mean, there's 4 Kiwis or something, or 3 Kiwis that will be given the opportunity. You go back 20 years, there was 17 Kiwis on a New Zealand boat, and lots of oceanized windbread boats.
I find there's a real friendliness. It's different than the America's Cup. I've been here since 2001. But
yes.
You guys have brought with Volvo. It's a different community of people out there.
Yes.
It really is. It's a friendly community. You can hold that cup down there. You can talk to people. The teams will stop and talk to you. I think this is excellent for this area down here.
Like a big family.
And it's more friendly now in our race as well than we have ever been before. So it's, and I think that has to do with the boats and a lot of things, but people are much more working much closer together, spending more time.
I think the boatyard's helped.
Boatyard has helped sharing, you know, the fact that if one boat has a problem, everybody knows that if he doesn't tell that he has a problem, everyone could get that problem. So it's in everyone's interest to actually share, because they all get better all the time and avoid having problems. So, no, I think that helps. But I think the sailing got into a bit of a corner where we thought we were Formula 1 superstars, and you need to sort of adjust a bit back to where the French have kept it the whole time. You know, it has to be more less elitist and more sort of, the sailors have to sort of look after themselves. I mean, not just expect to be paid and be like a soccer superstar that get picked up and sent to heaven. You know, you have to, you make your own life. What it used to be. Here in New Zealand, I mean, Peter Blake was one of those guys who started, you know, if he didn't find the money, he wouldn't be racing. That was his way to do it. And that's how most of, if you look at the Dongfeng guys, they've been racing Figaro, nobody gave them a Figaro. They had to go and knock on some doors and try to ask that guy, can you please sponsor me a little bit here, a little bit there, and off you go.
But that's also the big change in this race, that you've suddenly got sports and event management companies coming in behind the teams rather than the Blake Dalton model where you know, first year of the race you put on your suit and tie and went door knocking.
Yes.
Who really has the first, you know, light bulb go off in their head in terms of that? Is it the sports management company who say talk to sponsors and then select the crew, or is it the crew going the other way?
It's different models for each team. In sailing, there is a couple of there's a group of around 10-12 people who can find money, who are old sailors who used to race, so they are still involved. You know, Mark Turner is an example, and Grant Dalton is an example, although he's heavily criticized in New Zealand, but I can promise you the day people kick him out, the money's going to disappear the next morning. Because he finds the money, and that's what people forget. Maybe he makes some mistakes, I don't know, I'm not going to comment on that one, but I know that this is one thing he's bloody good at, and that is the raising the funding. And that's what Peter Blake was also good at, and that's what Mark Turner is good at. And there's some of those guys who have the passion for the sport and raise the money, and then there is some sport professional event companies that do this as a profession, more as a company than individuals. You know, Atlanta that runs SCA is an example. They have run 5-6 ocean race campaigns and do that professionally. But I think the challenge we have is still that the young guys have not learned this the hard way yet. In France, they are learning it the hard way. It's one of the few countries left where you have that school. If you don't find your money, you won't be there. Unless you're the absolute superstar. And you might be lucky enough to be picked up, but it's only 1 or 2. I mean, François Gabard, maybe, you know, someone who's very young and very talented get picked up by a sponsor. But for most, the majority, they have to make their own life. And I think that's a very good school. I went to that school with Roger Nilsson in Sweden, who was very good in Scandinavia on this. And we were like, you know, 6-7 sailors who learned from him how you do this. And I think that's Mark Toville and Charlie Enright are going to that school.
Yeah.
They're going to that school, and I have been very cautious with them. They came to me 3 years ago. We kind of took them in my commercial team under our wings, and we went to meetings with them. We brought them with us when we had sponsor pitches for the Volvo Ocean Race to learn. And they have the interest, they want to make it happen on their own. And then half a year later they managed to raise sponsorship to go across the Atlantic with a 70-foot maxi in a Rolex Transatlantic race. And they were only 23 years old. They managed to do it. It wasn't so much money, it was like $100,000, but it, good start. And now they're here. So we need more of those. And it's not about raising millions and being a superstar, it's more that we need more sailors to realize that it's my destiny and I have to take care of it. I think that's key.
Okay. Sorry, it's almost 4 o'clock, so if we have any pressing
We can sit there forever, right?
I know we can sit there forever, we have those.
One design has obviously been one success, and that we touched on it 5 minutes ago, the boatyard.
Yes.
You must be really pleased how that is.
Yeah, the boatyard is a baby. Yeah, it's I still think we're half pregnant with it. I still think we are learning a lot. This was a crazy idea, and it wasn't a very popular idea, I must admit. It was not that the one design was a popular idea either, because it wasn't. But I think the principles of the boatyard is to create an environment where people share, and the benefit of sharing are financial, they are social, and atmosphere. And they also create an opportunity for the audience to get insight, And if you look at the past where everything was secret, you mentioned America's Cafe, you see those tall red black walls surrounding Team New Zealand, It's not exactly open. It's a closed, it's like you think there's a million gold bars in there, but you can't get in. And I think that is so key for our sport, is to be very, very open. So the boatyard has those 3 elements in it. And I think that we didn't force it on the teams. We said that you're going to have to be part of it, but we didn't say you're not allowed to have your own short team. And that you will see that the teams in the race have bought into the boatyard with different levels. So the last teams that came to the start line bought it more than the first teams. Vestas decided to buy 100%. The Vestas guys, Chris Nichols said to me, what's the optimal way of working with the boatyard? And I said, well, you have 2 show crew, we fix the rest. And they went, 2 show crew, fix the rest. So they have 2. I think Ian Walker has 10, 12. The CA has more. So the benefit for Team Vestas is much, much bigger than the others. And I think the others are learning that, So I think that going forward we will expand on it. We are learning a lot. We will do even more. We started just thinking about boats and spare parts, maintenance. Then we included insurance. Insurance, I think if we didn't use the one design in the boatyard, we wouldn't even have insurance. There's a lot of offshore racing. In France they're struggling big time with having their 1-60s insured, and we got our whole fleet insured, basically based on the boatyard and the one design. Not only the one design, but also the boatyard, because we could show the insurers that we have a professional maintenance program. It's going to be this and this and this. And then they asked, okay, when are the boats going to change their standing rigging? Well, that's going to happen here and here and here and here and here. Okay, when are they going to change the hydraulics? Well, that's going to happen here and here and here and here. We had a plan for every boat before we went to the insurance market. And they said, well, this is interesting, because now we can take the whole fleet. That limits our risk. And we know that's a qualified service manual for each boat, and we know who's going to do it. So there's a lot of hidden things. Then we started, one thing we got thrown out very late was the doctor. So now there's a doctor and a nurse, or an assistant, who's now shared for the whole race. So now the teams don't really have to have a doctor. In fact, some teams still chose to take their own doctor. It's a waste of money if you ask me. Vestas obviously didn't, and Kemper didn't. But there is now a shared doctor. And next race I can see sharing travel planning, sharing accommodation, sharing food. We're already sharing. They're not allowed to cook food in their team bases anymore. And then we can expand more and more on that. I think it's a super good thing for sailing in general to share resources. So, more things, questions? No? Well, we'll have an exciting weekend. A dramatic and exciting weekend. If you're here on a Sunday night, make sure you take some precautions. Yeah, I think it's going to be. Some of our forecasters are quite pessimistic about the look inside the city on Sunday.
Would you mind ringing my fellow employers on Monday when I can't get back to Sydney?
Yes. Well, it's very possible.
We already been talking about flights might be cancelled.
Sorry?
There's already been some talk that
Yeah,
flights
yeah.
might be cancelled.
Yeah. It only has to move very little west to
2 degrees.
be very serious here in Auckland City.
I think Auckland would like a category 2 head on.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's Mother Nature
Yes.
talking to